Hey, this is the Gig Life Podcast. I'm your host, Stevie Taylor. This podcast is produced wholly by me. It's not connected to any network or sponsors, which means we can pretty much do whatever we want. But it also means we don't get any of their monies. It's free for you to listen, always will be. But if you see value in the Gig Life Podcast, you can leave a tip or a donation. You can find a link in the show notes on your podcast app or at thegiglifepodcast.com. Okay, this is episode 114. It's Shauna Jensen. Here we go. My guest today is Shauna Jensen. Shauna is a vocalist with an outstanding pedigree. She's had an illustrious career and has worked in not only the Australian live music scene but also the recording industry as well. Shauna started her career singing in 1970 with the band Purple Vision, whose biggest highlight for Shauna was supporting Billy Thorpe and the Aztecs. In the early 70s, Shauna tried her hand at musical theatre, being in the original cast of Jesus Christ Superstar. This led Shauna to studio work. In her role as a studio session singer, her voice has been heard on many TV and radio commercials, as well as soundtracks for film and TV series. From this began a successful career singing backing vocals and touring for a couple of decades with Australia's leading rock industry professionals, including Jimmy Barnes, Noiseworks, Chisel, Richard Clapton and Doug Parkinson. She's even recorded an unreleased album of duets with Hugh Jackman, and that was produced by the late legendary Phil Ramone. She's appeared on TV as a judge on Network 7's Pop Stars Live, as a regular panellist on Foxtel's Beauty and the Beast, featured singer on Foxtel's Studio A, as well as every incarnation of the midday show on the Nine Network as a soloist. Shauna recently appeared as one of the 100 judges in Network 7's Altogether Now, and in the last decade, Shauna has had many sellout cabaret shows in Sydney and is in high demand. 2020 marked Shauna's 50th year as a professional musician. An incredible singer, she's a gem, and she calls it how she sees it. Ladies and gentlemen, please give it up for the fabulous Shauna Jensen. All right, I think we're rolling. Welcome and congratulations on 50 years in the music industry, Shauna Jensen.
Hey, Stevie, thank you so much.
Hey, here we are. How many shots have we tried at this?
I think this is our fourth or fifth attempt.
Yeah.
We did it.
We did it. We're here. And like I just said, 2020 was your 50th year in the music industry. And what a pretty shit year to have your 50th anniversary.
Wasn't what I expected, that's for sure. Or it wasn't what any of us expected.
Yeah. So what so how was your I don't want to focus too much on the COVID thing because it's been talked about a lot, and as I've said before, everyone's very aware of the devastation it did to the local music industry and to musicians and artists and stuff. But give us a little rundown on how your 2020 went down, and you know, on the 50-year thing. Did you have some plans to celebrate that 50 years?
Not necessarily. I'd had an operation on my ankle in late 2019. It was a major operation. Sorry, I'm just fixing my power. I had a pretty serious operation on my ankle in the end of 2019, and that impacted on me quite greatly. I wasn't able to do as much work as I wanted to do, and I had quite a bit of rehabilitation. So, and then COVID hit, and it was like, oh, great, fantastic. So I did do a couple of gigs being pushed around in a wheelchair, and my knee scooter, and that was kind of fun. And then COVID hit, and it was. I had already been in my own kind of lockdown because of my surgery.
Okay.
So I didn't feel like it impacted on me as much as it would have had I not been recovering from that surgery. But I kind of went, okay, well, how am I going to kind of get myself out there? And I did a few live streams, which was quite fun.
Yep.
I called it Lezo in Lockdown.
Lezo in Lockdown, yeah. Yeah.
And that was quite fun. And started it off with the theme from Prisoner on the inside. And it was a lot of fun, and people were very generous and lovely. And it was nice that people kind of, gave us tips for all the people that did do live streams. But that's challenging in itself, because you're singing in your lounge room and the song finishes and you're like, right, you're in my lounge room. And then you finish your little show and you're like, right, okay, well, here I am still in my lounge room by myself. And I found that really quite odd. But I probably did about a half a dozen shows or 8 shows.
Yeah, that's
and
cool.
I was fortunate enough to have a venue that I do cabaret shows at in Sydney that were able to start putting cabaret shows on with limited capacity and, the distancing and all that stuff. So I was able to do a couple of those, which was really good. But, we all know how sucky it was. It's a sucky time.
Yeah.
There's no way around it.
Yeah. So going back to your ankle.
Still is.
Going back to your ankle, did you have an injury? Did you fall or something, or is it just something
Well, I had fallen over on my ankle a lot, and I ended up with really bad arthritis.
Okay.
And I had to. I was at a point where I was in so much pain, and my ankle looked like it had a grapefruit underneath it, my ankle joint, and I had to have a full ankle fusion. Wow. So it's pretty full on. Yeah, they fuse bone and put a titanium plate in and pins. They call them pins, but they're actually like 4-inch screws in the aisle 4 at Bunnings. They're huge.
Yeah.
And it's quite weird, and the rehabilitation was quite long, and I don't have a range of motion in my foot as I did before the operation, but it's okay now,
So is it, or people can't see my hand moving, but is it like when you're walking, or is it the side to side?
It's walking, so it's heel to toe.
Heel to toe, yeah, okay, yeah.
Heel to toe, and the plate is in the front of the foot. Yeah. So from about a quarter of the way up your ankle into your shin. Okay. And you have to be non-weight bearing for 4 months.
Oh, wow.
So that was really, thank God for my family. Mm-hmm. Thank God for my daughter Rebecca and her husband Michael and my grandchildren, because I had to stay at their place. I couldn't do anything. I couldn't shower by myself. I couldn't get around. Had to stay off it. It was really hard. Mm. So I just sat and ate lots of chocolate, as you do.
Yeah, yeah.
Drank wine, ate chocolate, and took opiates. Woohoo!
Yeah.
And it was a very challenging time. And so the range of motion that I have on my foot now is if I point my left leg forward, I can point my toe like anybody normally could.
Yep.
And then I go to do the same thing on my right foot and it hardly moves.
Wow, okay.
But, I could still stand on my toes, but I can't do a lot. I don't have the same range of motion that I did. There won't be any more roller skating. There won't be any more high heels. There won't be any more, it's difficult to do things like gardening. It's difficult to do yoga because I just don't have that same range of motion in my ankle. So, I walk a lot, go to the beach with my dog and, that's what I do.
Yeah. You mentioned
try and get rid of.
You mentioned your daughter Beck Jensen and her husband Michael Wheatley. Shout out to Michael and Beck. They were both on the podcast. So go back and look for their interviews and have a listen and catch up with them.
Yes.
So you're living on the Central Coast.
I am.
Central Coast of New South Wales. And how long have you been up there and what made you move up there?
I've been up here for 2 years, and I moved up here because being a musician all my life and being shit with money, I never really kind of saved enough to buy a house, so I'm a renter. And quite happy with that, no regrets there. And I kind of got pushed out of the Sydney rental market. And I wanted a lifestyle where I could, live well. And I didn't want to be living in a studio apartment in Sydney at my age. And so I decided that north was better than south because I like the beach and warm weather. And it's still only an hour and a half out of Sydney. So it's not that far.
Yep.
An hour and 15 minutes I can be in the city on the train.
Yep.
And, it's beautiful. It's quiet, not terribly multicultural, not a lot of diversity up here, but it's beautiful and I love it. I love the lifestyle. I have a 2-bedroom house I can afford, It's and I miss just being able to go to a gig and see somebody.
Yep.
I kind of I just thinking, I'll go out tonight. You've got to plan your whole, journey out, and that's annoying. But that's okay. I didn't go out that much anyway, even when I lived in Sydney.
Okay. So how is the music scene in the Central Coast?
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't really I think that there's a lot of venues that do little duets, solo gigs. I know that there's bands that do gigs, but I haven't investigated it. I'm not really interested in looking to get a band up here. Not interested.
Okay.
Too old, doll.
Fair enough.
Yeah. You get to, I'll be 68 this year. So the thought of actually trying to get a band together and that whole palaver that goes on with getting a band together, forget it. I'd rather do it in Sydney and do it for a specific project, which, I have some things in mind that I'd like to do next year.
Great.
But, I'm not planning on doing anything at the moment. I'm just staying put, waiting for my second vaccination, and when I'm fully vaccinated, I'll think about what I want to do moving forward musically.
Good stuff. Good stuff.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's roll right back to the beginning now.
Okay.
Yep. And then we'll work up through your life and your career and see where we end up. So,
okay.
Yeah. So, were you born in Sydney?
I was born in Sydney, and I was really lucky to be born into a family that had singers. My maternal family, my grandfather, who were Greek, my maternal family. And my grandfather was a fabulous singer, and his second-born daughter, Angela, became a professional opera singer, and she sang at Covent Garden, and she was a wonderful singer, and she studied quite hard. But I was just born with the genetics to be able to sing quite easily. I have a great feel for it. And so I just didn't want to do anything else but sing as I was growing up. I was in plays, and I went to the talent school. And when I say talent school, I mean it was the local Presbyterian church hall Saturday morning, talent school that was run by a woman called Miss Roderick. And Miss Roderick taught us how, ballet, Highland flings, tap dancing, singing, plays. That was the whole gamut.
The whole thing. Yep.
Yeah, it was everything, and it was great. And one day, a talent scout from Channel 7 came to the school looking for kids to go on the Tarax show or something it was called. I can't remember. And I was about 7, and they got me to go on television this Saturday morning. And I remember my dad taking me. So maybe it was a work day, because normally my mother would have done something like that. But I remember my father taking me, and it was summer, and it was really hot. And all the kids were getting ice blocks and Coke or Tarax or whatever it was, drinks, and we didn't get anything. Anyway, there were these 2 men who were the hosts of the show. You could never have anything like that now. And they were called Uncle Reggie and Uncle somebody else. And the set was this door, and they were in banana chairs. Who believes this?
Yeah.
On either side. And they brought me up to them, and they had a little chat with me. And I don't know what I said. And I remember they had a chat with me, and then they said, well, just go through that door. And I went through the door, and I sang a song. I sang A Dream Is a Wish Your Heart Makes from Cinderella. And I always look at that moment as being the metaphor for walking into the world of show business.
Yeah, right. Awesome.
Like I haven't come out yet. I'm still in there.
Yeah, great.
Wandering around, So that was kind of my first television appearance. I wish I had it. I don't know where it is. It could be in the archives somewhere. And that was kind of like the first thing I did. And then as I moved through my youth and into my teens, I was very fortunate, because my mother's best friend worked for the only promoter in Australia who brought everybody out. The Rolling Stones, the Beatles, Ray Charles, everything that was at the stadium in Sydney, which was where the Beatles performed, which was a big wooden, they used to have boxing there. Mm-hmm. They had all different kinds of things there, and it was just this huge round wooden building. Was in Rushcutters Bay. And he just gave my mother tickets to everything. So my earliest memories of seeing music were going to the stadium and seeing these shows of people would come out, that they would bring out entertainers from, all over the world. So I saw the Beatles and I saw the Rolling Stones when they came out, and that just inspired me more. I just loved music so much and just had such a feel for it. And my sister brought home a Motown Chartbusters LP, which I still have. Oh, cool. And it changed my life, that record. I was just like, oh my God, who is this? Who are these people? Because at that time, when I was growing up in the late 50s and the early 60s, in those formative years, we had a white Australia policy. So we didn't see any people of colour on the streets unless they were soldiers coming here for R&R from Vietnam or the war or wherever they came from, or entertainers, Sammy Davis Jr., Shirley Bassey, and anybody that they would bring with them, musicians. And they didn't play any black music on the radio. It was all white music. And so I thought that the blues was what the Animals played and the Rolling Stones. I didn't realise that they had taken that, appropriated that music and made it their own. But that's what I've been listening to, and listening to the Beatles and, miming the Beatles. We used to pretend that we were the Beatles, my sister and the girl from across the road and me, on plunking away on tennis rackets. And I always had to be George, and it really gave me the shit. Because they always wanted to be Paul or John, and I was like, I want to be Paul, but I was the little sister. So
whoever played Paul, did they used to flip the tennis racket around? No, because Paul's left-handed.
I
right?
know.
Yeah,
I know. Maybe she did. I don't know.
Okay.
I don't remember. I was pretty young. I was like 10 years old, I think. Okay. So I moved. I just wanted to sing, and I sang at school, and I left school and I just wanted to sing, much to my parents' chagrin. They were not happy. And my mother wanted me to go and learn how to be a secretary. And I was like, I'm not doing that. And I sat at home for like a year, watched Days of Our Lives, and didn't really do very much. And then I started going out to see people. I went to see, it was when I started singing professionally. I went to there was a club in King's Cross called John's and Charlie's, and it was Donnie Sutherland was the house DJ, and there was a band called Purple Vision. And I got up and sang Piece of My Heart with them one night, and they were like, oh, my God, you have to join our band. And so I went out to... is that the Janis Joplin song?
Yeah. Okay, cool.
Yeah,
great. Cracker song.
So I love Janis Joplin. I had that Big Brother and the Holding Company, Cheap Thrills album, and I sang Piece of My Heart, and they loved it, and they invited me to be in their band. So the following week I went out to Lakemba, which to me was like this little girl from, Vaucluse, Watson's Bay. To me, Lakemba was like Penrith. It was like, what? Anyway, went out there with my sister, and I sang with the band, and they pulled me aside and they said, you were really good at the club, but today, not so much. And I think that was me being a bit kind. I think they told me I was sucked or something.
Straight up.
And I was like mortified. Anyway, I joined that band. I ended up joining that band. And that was the start of kind of being in bands and starting that life. And I've been in a lot of bands. I've sung with a lot of people, So that was the start of it all, really.
Yeah.
Purple Vision.
Purple Vision. So can we go back to before you got on that TV show and walked through the door into show business, right? And this is before you started seeing the Beatles and Rolling Stones going to those shows. What kind of music was in your house? What kind of music was Mum and Dad listening to? And
they were listening to Frank Sinatra live at the Sands, which was one of my favourite albums. They listened to a bit of opera. They didn't listen to a lot of music, my parents.
Okay.
They didn't listen to a lot of music. There wasn't a lot of music in our house, as far as I can remember. But I remember loving that album of Frank Sinatra live at the Sands. And I have an image of that playing in my house. And what else did they had listened to? I think they listen to mostly, a bit of classical music and not much more.
I'm just trying to get to that point where you realised that you could naturally sing and what you were singing along to, or that.
Well, I was singing along to the radio.
Okay.
That's what I was singing along to. I was singing along to, It's My Party and I'll Cry If I Want to, and Cinderella songs and pop music of the day, and as a 7-year-old, 8-year-old does, but we had transistor radio and we had records in our house. My sister and I had records, but they were mostly Disney records, I think, from what I can remember, that style of Disney music. But an interesting thing happened to me many years later as an adult. I went to a friend's wedding at the Greek church in Rose Bay, and I hadn't been to Greek church since I was a little kid. And they have somebody singing, a cantor singing, the priest, and then the singing. And I realised that it was very similar scale to the blues scale. Mm-hmm. And I was like, oh, no wonder I was drawn to this. I grew up hearing this, but I didn't realise that that's what it was. That there was on some level that music got into me, but I always sang. My sister and I always sang. We were singing from the time, my parents would take us to a house party and they'd get the kids to sing, and we would always be singing something together or separately. And I think that I just had the ability and the affinity to music, and I just had that. It was just in me genetically. It's just in there.
Yeah, I understand. Yeah, that's really cool. Okay, so Purple Vision's the first band. Now, were you starting to see stars in your eyes there? Take this band to the world,
no.
Yeah, okay. And so how did things kind of progress from there musically?
So from there, of course, what happened was I didn't know very many musicians. I didn't know it. My circle was not. I didn't have very many friends, even really. And I remember with Purple Vision, we did a gig supporting Billy Thorpe and the Aztecs at a club called The Here in North Sydney, no longer there, run by a famous mafioso of Sydney, as all the clubs were in those days. And I remember seeing Billy come in, because we were the support, and Billy and the Aztecs would come in, and they were like, Billy was just fucking like a freight train, Billy. Yep. And he would come in. Apparently he used to have his harmonicas in vodka, or that was the myth. I don't know whether that was true. Really? I did ask him about it many years later, but he said he didn't remember. And it was an amazing education. I was 16, 17. And so we used to play gigs, and then that broke up. Something happened. I don't know. I ended up joining a band called Flake. I was with a band. They had a song called Wheels on Fire with a singer called Sharon Sims. And I think that might have come out of Purple Vision. I don't know. Can't remember. Too long ago. And I started going and taking myself. I remember going to Whiskey A Go-Go in William Street and just going up to musicians and introducing myself, saying, I'm Shauna and I'm a singer. And they were happy to meet me because I had large breasts and I was young and hot. And I met lots of great musos that remained friends, forever.
Yeah.
And I never really kind of had ambition to be a star.
Mhm.
I just wanted to sing. And so I went from one thing to another, to another, to another. And I did gigs with a little band in King's Cross. And one night, I think it was the same band. And one night was a jazz night. And one night was a blues night. And one night might have been a soul night. So it was just me winging it and just learning songs and learning the repertoire and singing it and being fabulous, having a great time.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how I spent a lot of my time up until the 70s, I guess. You know, the early 70s. And that was when I went into Jesus Christ Superstar.
So before we get into Jesus Christ Superstar, so how, excuse me, how many gigs you reckon you were doing a week?
Oh, shoot. I could easily have been doing 5 gigs a week, some weeks, 6 gigs. Because in those days, every pub had a band.
Yep.
Every club had a band. I was working at the Coogee Oceanic Hotel. I might have been working in the Cross somewhere. I might have been working, you know, anywhere. There was a lot of work around. Not a lot of money, but wasn't, you know, I guess relative to what people get paid today, probably about the same. But there was more work available then. It was pre-poker machines.
Yep. Okay.
So, you know, that killed everything, didn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So Jesus Christ Superstar, how did that come about? And yeah, what were you doing at the time? Yep.
Well, I was living in Piermont in a share house with a trombone player who was friends with the MD of Jesus Christ Superstar. It was before the show had started. And the musical director, Michael Carlos, came over to the house one day. And the trombone player introduced us, and Michael said, well, I'm actually looking for a singer to be in this band. I'm putting the band together, the Jesus Christ Superstar pit band together, and I want to do 6 weeks of gigs at the Coogee Oceanic Hotel, and we want a female singer, but I don't want anybody I want you. And John English is going to be the singer, and it was like 2 keyboard players, guitar player, bass player, and I was like, I'm in. And so I went and did that gig, and then Superstar opened, and then I think 6 or 8 weeks after it opened, they had auditions again to fill the cast out, and I auditioned and got in. And then I did that. I did Superstar for, I don't know, a year maybe. Can't remember. It was fun though, and taught me so much.
Yeah.
So much.
Harry Bruce and Greg Henson were in that band, weren't they?
Greg was in the band.
Yep.
Was Greg in that band? Yeah, Greg was in that band. Harry Bruce wasn't in that band. Bruce Worrell was the bass player in that band, who had been in Sherbet, or went on to be in Sherbet.
Yep.
Yeah. So, and I knew Bruce. I've just got to get my chronological order right here.
It's okay. Don't stress too much about it.
No, I'm not. But yeah. I knew Bruce because I had lived in a share house in Glebe, and Sherbet used to rehearse in the house.
Right.
And Bruce and Garth lived in the house. So that's how I knew them. But it was that band, that Superstar band was Michael Carlos, Jamie McKinley, Mike Wade, Greg Henson, Bruce Worrell, and I think that was it. And John English and myself. It was fun.
Yeah.
It's really good. Really, it was a great band, and it was a great way for him. It was a really good idea for him to do that 6 weeks of gigs to get the band tight. So when they went in to do Superstar, they were already a cohesive unit. So that was really smart of Michael Carlos. And Michael Carlos was the first guy to use a Moog synthesizer in Australia. He helped develop Moog. So, yeah, amazing. But not that that was happening then, I don't think.
Right. So had you seen or heard of anything like Jesus Christ Superstar before? So did you know when it came to start doing the shows, kind of what you're in for, and I mean, because that thing got pretty big, didn't it?
Yeah. I had never done anything like that before. That was a completely new experience for me. I had almost auditioned for Hair, the musical, but I didn't want to take my clothes off, so I didn't do it. Jesus Christ Superstar was an incredible experience because it taught me how to sing with other people. Mm-hmm. It taught me how to sing to a huge house, how to project to the back room, the back of the, theatre. And some nights, and we were all a pack of rat bags, half of the show had come from Hair. They're all hippies. It was a big tribe. We called ourselves a tribe.
Yep.
And we used to smoke pot and, just like we just lived life and we were loving it and living our best lives. And it was Harry and Miller was the producer. And we would do a show and think, wow, that was a great show. We were fantastic. And we'd get a call over the PA that Harry and Miller's coming in, wants to speak to the cast on stage immediately after the show. So you'd get down onto the stage and Harry'd come down and he'd go, so I guess you thought that was a really good show. And everyone would be like, yeah, it was great. And he'd go, that was the biggest load of shit I've ever seen. And he'd bag you out. And the whole premise of that was to make you lift your game. And he would do that every so often.
Yep.
To just make us all maintain a standard. He didn't want anybody getting slack. And it was an amazing experience. And I'm still friends with majority of those people that are still alive. We had a reunion a few years ago. It was really good, the 40th reunion, amazing. And it was an outstanding experience. Outstanding. You don't get to experience something where you're on stage with, 40 other people or 50 other people these days. And they were all incredible singers. Every single one was a great singer and a performer. And Stevie Wright was in it. He played Simon. And there was John and Trevor. And the girl who played Mary was called Michelle Forden. She unfortunately passed away from cancer a few years ago. And she wasn't a great singer, but she was an actor. And they decided they would get somebody who could sing her. She was a little bit quirky and adorable. And the original cast had a guy called Joe Dicker in it as Herod, and John Paul Young was in it. Michael Caton was in it. Right. And this is before John Paul Young had his first hit with whatever that first hit he had was.
Yep.
And it's funny. And I remember him recording that, whatever that first hit was. So, yeah, lovely. Great experience. Wouldn't change it for the world. And I went on to do another couple of theatre shows, but I didn't like the fact that you had to do the same thing every night. That was not, I find it very difficult I don't find it difficult. Of course I can do that. I prefer to be free.
Understand. And
to be able to be unrestricted in how I sing something, because I don't want to sing something the same every night. That's not how it comes to me. But there are people who do that job extraordinarily well and love it. but music theatre, not my jam at all.
Mm.
I've enjoyed seeing Priscilla the musical. I enjoyed seeing Muriel's Wedding, and that's about it. I'm not into musicals.
Yep, fair call. Okay, so what other opportunities did that show sort of open up to you? Obviously, you've met all this, all these new musicians and the new acts and even the management of the shows. And you said you did a couple of other theatre things, but what sort of outside of that came about after Jesus Christ Superstar?
So after Jesus Christ Superstar, or even during Jesus Christ Superstar, I got approached to start doing jingles, to do some recording for, it might have been just after Superstar, because I had a baby after, I had Rebecca in 76. So it must have been a couple of years after that, maybe 78.
So just on that, when I spoke to Beck on the podcast, I asked her, was talking about how her sort of musical sort of started, and she mentioned that you were pregnant with her during Jesus Christ Superstar, and she was kind of
she was in the show.
Had those. Yeah, she was in the show. That's right.
Yeah, she was. Her dad was a guitar player in the show at that time, and I was pregnant with her. I got pregnant with her, and I think then we might have gone to New Zealand or something, and I can't remember. It was a long time ago. You'll find that I can't remember a lot of things. Okay. A long time ago. So she's a superstar baby.
Cool. That's really cool.
Yeah, a couple of superstar babies. And, they're a little club. And
oh, really?
Yes, well, not club. Really, but, we call them our superstar babies.
Okay, that's cool.
My Becky, one of the women that I became very good friends with, and still she's one of my best friends, she was originally from New Zealand and came over to do Superstar, and we became pregnant around the same time. And our children were born within 6 weeks of each other. And we both lived on the Northern Beaches, and we both became single mothers. And so Beck and Tui, this little girl Tui, she and Becky became best friends, and they did lots and lots of stuff together, and they've remained best friends their whole lives, and they're godmothers to each other's children, and
great.
They were superstar babies, and that's, that was a beautiful thing, and
awesome.
Still is a beautiful thing, yeah. Mm. And so after Superstar, myself, there was about five of us. It was myself and Maggie McKinney, Russell Hitchcock, and Adrian Payne. Russell Hitchcock, of course, went on to form Air Supply with Graham Russell.
Right.
They were both in Superstar. And a guy called Adrian Payne, great singer, and myself and Maggie started being invited to do recording sessions, to do jingles. And we just had a great sound. And so we worked for a producer who was just starting out, who shall remain nameless because I don't want to get sued, or you to get sued.
Okay.
Because I don't have a very high opinion of him.
Yep.
And we all basically agreed to work for him for less money than we should have worked for him, because he was starting out. And but that sprung from being in Superstar. He wasn't in Superstar. We just kind of stumbled upon this. And so I started doing a lot of recording sessions, a lot of jingles, sometimes 3 a day. I was doing a lot, all through the 80s, really. And that led on to me being asked to sing on Jimmy Barnes's first album when he left Chisel and did his first album. So I went on to sing on that record and then got asked to go on tour, and then started, because we had such a great sound, and it ended up being myself and Maggie and Mark Williams, and we did a lot of recording sessions together. And the Eurogliders, we did their album. We did lots and lots of things, and I ended up going on tour with Jimmy from that point on, basically, and from 1984, I think that was, and could have been 83 or 84, and toured with him for about 20 years or more. But I always had my own band, and when I wasn't working with Jimmy, I'd go out on tour with Richard Clapton, or I'd go on tour with Noiseworks or Margaret Ehrlich, or whoever asked me, I would do it. And I was very good at it. And that was why I got a lot of work, because I'm very good at doing backing vocals.
I got a question regarding backing vocals, and when you go into and I've asked this before on podcasts to different singers.
Yeah.
When you go into a backing vocalist gig, what's your process when you first sort of turn up there? Do you get with whoever your other backing vocalists are and find out? Well, sorry, are you asked to join the gig because of your certain range, and then how do you have that conversation with the other backing vocalists to find where you're all going to fit? Does that make sense?
Yeah. Usually, it would depend on what the gig was. Mm-hmm. Like if it was a recording session, generally, probably 80% of the time doing a recording session that was an album, not necessarily a jingle, because jingle producers always knew what they wanted, and they would just say, this is what you're singing, this is what you're singing, this is what you're singing. And can you put an octave on top of that? And that would be can you swap parts? Yep. And that's why Maggie and I worked so well together, because we had a very similar tone, and we could double parts and change bits around, and you sing the top and I'll sing the bottom, and that's where it would go. But when you're doing an album, 80% of the time you would walk into the studio and the producer would not know what they want, know that they wanted backing vocals, but not necessarily have an arrangement. And you would, there was a joke that used to go around about how many record producers does it take to change a light bulb? I don't know, what do you think? Because that was kind of, I don't know, what do you think? I don't know, what do you think? So it was always a matter of you'd go in and you'd listen to the track, and depending on, usually I knew whoever I was working with, and I would just say, I'm going to do the top.
Okay.
I'll do the top, or I'll do the melody, you do the third, you do that, and then we'll swap. Because generally the way that you make a good sound is that you would well, what would happen in those days was pre-computers. You would go in and you would listen to the song and you would start at the end of the song. And so it was, all songs are verse, chorus, bridge, chorus, finish. So you'd start at the end of the song with the chorus. You'd work out what it was that you were going to do, who was going to sing what, and you'd go in and you'd record it, then you'd double track it, then you might put another part on and double track that. That was if you were singing the same, both singing the same thing. Or often Maggie and I would sing, she'd sing one part, I'd sing another part. When we double tracked it, we'd swap. So it would give this a bigger, fatter sound.
Yep.
And we would do the end of the song. So when you do the end of the song, there's usually 3 or 4 choruses. So by the time you've finished all that tracking, you go back and you do the first chorus, boom. You could just do it, boom, 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 and it's done. and it has energy, and
Right.
which is what they're looking for. And that's what I hate so intensely about what I hear these days is people just cutting and pasting music. Drives me mad.
Yeah.
You just don't get the same vibe. And I understand that's the way it is. But, you know, I the time that I came up in was a golden time in music for me.
Yeah.
And I can remember going and doing Doug Parkinson's I'll Be Around and those songs, God rest his soul. Can't believe he's gone. And Duncan Maguire was the engineer, Mark Kennedy. And Duncan would actually say, I'm going to get rid of that. I'll just get rid of that breath. No, hang on a second. Just go and smoke a joint and I'll just go and fix this. And he'd go off into the back room and he would literally splice the tape with a blade, and you would never know that a mistake had been made or whatever it was.
Wow.
And, you know, we would spend days in the recording studio doing an album. And depending, of course, you know, our commercial sessions weren't like that. Commercial sessions were time is money, get it done, get on, sing it and get out. That was it. But with albums, there was usually a lot more freedom to be creative. And, of course, we never got credit for arrangements. We never got credit for, you know, writing the parts or arranging. But we did everything.
You did it,
But, of course, we never got credit for that. And I loved it. I loved going into the studio, and I loved then going and recreating that sound at gigs. You know, I always loved that. Loved that. And, so that's how that would usually work.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting what you said about going in and doing the end first. I haven't heard that before. That kind of really makes sense too, because then you can put it all in at the end. Like sorry, when you're starting the session, you're doing all you're filling it up as much as you can.
Yeah.
Because if you kind of did it the other way, by the time you got to the end,
it sounds
you'd be going, what do we do to make it fatter? Or, you know, we've already done that. We did that back there. So yeah, that's fascinating.
So it was about creating the vibe and the energy that you'd be completely warmed up. So by the time you would go to back to that first chorus,
you're on. Yeah.
You'd just be like, when you've done it 5,000 times already. So you just like, you know what the energy is, you know what you have to do, and you just do it, and you have that same sound. And a lot of people just don't understand that anymore. They just record a chorus and cut and paste it.
Yeah.
So everything sounds linear. And look, I've done it myself with recordings. I've certainly done that myself, but it doesn't have the same vibe. That's for sure.
Okay, so you've come through that era of lots of sessions, lots of jingles, playing with Jimmy, backing Jimmy, also backing or singing with Doug. What's next?
So then I started doing a lot of touring.
Mm-hmm.
So I was touring a lot with Jimmy and touring a lot. When I wasn't touring with Jimmy, I was touring with Richard Clapton.
Yep. And
if I wasn't touring with Richard, then there might be a Noiseworks, there might be sessions. And I always had my own band. I had my own band. I had a residency at a club called Springfields, which used to be called the Mansell Room, for 6 years. And we didn't even start work till 1 o'clock in the morning. We did 2 sets, and we never even rehearsed. We had, learned a repertoire and played the same thing forever. And that club was just fantastic because, we used to get all the touring musicians would come in because it was like an after hours, and all the musicians that wanted to get on it would come in, and, we'd get people getting up and jamming, and that was really cool. and but the touring was great. I loved touring most of the time. I loved it. There were times when I didn't love it. I went through that whole time with Jimmy where he was in a bad place, and I didn't understand how I knew he was an addict, but I didn't understand the depth of where that came from. So it was very disturbing and sometimes quite frightening to be around. There were times when something would happen that would trigger Jimmy, and he would become quite violent and aggressive, and that was very fun to be around. But that didn't happen a lot. It was more often than not. It was pretty fun, and this was days before he would do big arenas. He was doing, those big pubs that were everywhere that would have 500 or 600 people in them, and clubs, and the mosh pit. It was just, everyone was jam packed in there, and they were diehard Chisel fans, diehard Barnsley fans, and it was the same with Richard, touring with Richard, and the same with Noiseworks. Although that was a bit later on, so we probably did bigger arenas with Noiseworks, and then I did Chisel. I did the first Chisel reunion tour, backing vocals with that. And, all the way working up to that whole year probably was terrifying, because the closer it became, the more out of control Jimmy got. And that was not fun to be around. And I remember being in Western Australia, and we were taking a small plane down the coast, and I remember ringing my girlfriend and saying, I don't want to get on the plane. It's like rock stars and small planes. It's not good. It's bad. It was scary. And she'd be like, just you'll be all right. Just, look out the window and, meditate and all that stuff. And lucky we didn't have a plane crash or anything nasty, but it was... There were some pretty scary, hairy times, yeah. That's for sure. But the music always made up for it. I loved being on stage with Jimmy Barnes. Loved it. One of the best experiences of my career, because Jimmy gave me an opportunity to sing in front of thousands of people. And often I was the only singer. Often it was just me. And he gave me the opportunity to sing in front of thousands of people. He shared the stage with me. We would do duets together. He was very generous in that regard. And, every experience that you have is a learning experience, be it good or bad. And even the bad ones were learning experiences. And I'm so grateful to him for all those years of those gigs, because they were absolutely incredible. And, I got to travel all over Australia. I've worked in every single venue that you could possibly work at. And I've travelled to overseas with him, and I got to do a lot of stuff. Although, if you were to read his book, Working Class Man, I don't even exist in that book. I was invisible to him. But that was his reality. And once I got over my bruised ego, not being mentioned in that book, well, I found it really interesting, Stevie, because when he wrote Working Class Boy, I had to keep putting that book down, because I know the whole family very well. And it was very disturbing to read that was what his life was. And it gave me an insight into the man he had become, that was addicted to the drugs and the violence, and that, it was just perpetuating. And then when he wrote Working Class Man, which was the the next book, which was about from Cold Chisel on his solo career, I started reading it and I'm like, there's pictures of guys in the band with the platinum records, and I'm flicking through going, oh yeah, right. There's my platinum record on the wall over there, same album. I'm like, okay, right. And then I'm reading the book, and at some point he says, and then we did the Soul Deep tour and we got some backing singers. And I was really shocked. I was shocked that I meant so little to him when he had meant so much to me. And it really upset me. I was wounded deeply. And I had to really think about what it was what my reality was. That was his reality. He was writing about his reality. And I had to think, well, what was my reality? And my reality was that, as I said to you, I got to sing in all those venues in front of all those people and sing duets with him and work on all those big stages and work with incredible sound engineers and incredible musicians. So what I got from that was far more than my bruised ego. You know what I mean? So I got over that pretty quickly. And I haven't worked for Jimmy for a long time. So, you know, I don't think he'll probably ever ask me to work for him again because I'm too old for him. He likes the young ones, likes the family in there. But I did go up to Becky. My daughter Beck was doing backing vocals for him on the last tour.
Yep. And
I was in Brisbane doing a gig with Bob Down, doing a show with Bob Down. And we had a matinee and I finished and they waited for me and I went out to the gig, drove out with Becky. It was Mother's Day. And I drove out with Beck and stood at the side of the stage whilst the gig was on, and 80% of the set was every single song I'd ever sung on stage with Jimmy. And I wasn't sure how I was going to react, but I had a great time. I really loved it. I was loving watching Beck up there just killing it. You know, she was just amazing and sounded incredible, and she was doing all the parts that I used to do. And then at the very last song, Jane said to me, "I'll get up and sing." I was like, no, I don't want to get up and sing. And she went, "No, come on, get up. It's goodbye. Get up and sing." So I got up and sang. And Jimmy came up onto the backing vocal riser and put his arm around me and sang this part of the song with me together, and then did this big introduction, and everybody went crazy. And I was like, oh, that's really nice. You kind of redeemed yourself, sort of, a little bit, 20% redemption. And his photographer, the guy that was Jared Singh that was taking the photos, caught this moment where Jimmy comes up and takes Jane off the stage and they walk off together. It's a bit like Dr. Phil and his wife. And it's totally like that. And then he leaned up and gave me a kiss, and I got him to take my hand because I needed to step down off the riser. And as he took my hand and I was stepping down, Jared got this shot. And it's such a great photo. It will definitely go in my book. And I was like, okay, 5% more redemption for that moment. It's up to 25% now. So I don't know if he's ever going to get up to 100%.
Yeah.
But that was a great day because John Stevens was there and I hadn't seen John for a long time, and Tony Coper was there who manages John, and Tony and I had done backing vocals for the Cold Chisel tour. So,
okay.
And that was pretty amazing. The Cold Chisel tour was just completely over the top. It was like completely over the top. Rooms everywhere backstage, the game room and the bar room and the media room. Oh, it was amazing. It was just incredible.
So what tour was that Cold Chisel reunion tour?
It was the Last Wave of Summer.
Last Wave of Summer. Okay. Well, I saw that. I saw that show at the Sydney Entertainment Centre. I remember going to see that yeah.
And he had the drag queens and the burlesque dancers, the strippers, and it caused a lot of drama in the band. But
right.
Jimmy wanted it.
Right.
Jimmy wanted it. What Jimmy wants, Jimmy gets.
Right.
So that was great. That was fun tour.
That's cool.
We didn't do very much.
Right.
Yeah. So I don't know what else I can tell you about that.
Well, you don't have to. That's cool. You've said heaps about that. That's awesome. Now, once that sort of ended, how did your career change? You went into TV, didn't you?
Yes, I have done a bit of television.
Mm-hmm.
I was so I'm part of the LGBTQIA+ community, and I was judging the Mardi Gras parade on Oxford Street, and Foxtel were broadcasting it, and somebody came up and interviewed me. Gil Minervini actually came up, who's now the director of Vivid Australia, and she came up and interviewed me, and I was just on. I was just funny. I was able to speak well. They loved me, and the director was an old friend. Said, I'm directing Beauty and the Beast. Do you want to be on it? And I was like, sure, okay. Now I had been on television. I'd done a lot of singing on television. Mm-hmm. I had done the Mike Walsh show with Mike Walsh, with Ray Martin, and with Kerry Ann Kennell. So Kennelly.
Yep.
And so I had done and the Tonight Show and the blah, 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 done quite a lot of singing.
Mm-hmm.
And those gigs, those singing gigs on television, the midday show gigs, they went live to 3 million people used to watch that show. And you would go in the morning and you might get 2 run-throughs, if you were lucky, with the band, with Jeff Harvey and the orchestra. And then you would get maybe 3 camera rehearsals. Then you were in hair and makeup, and then it was live. You did it live. That was trial by fire. That was, an incredible experience to do that and to wear that fashion was probably at that 80s fashion that I wore. Oh, my God. But that was an amazing experience. And so I'd done lots of that singing on television, but I'd never spoken on television. So when I went into Beauty and the Beast, I was on panel with Lisa Wilkinson, Ita Buttrose, so-and-so and so-and-so, Jeannie Little, and a few other were rotating females on there.
So this was the Stan Zemanek.
Well, Stan had become sick and Doug Mulray had taken over.
Oh, right. Okay.
And I had done a lot of recording. I was the triple your music, Triple M. That was me.
Really?
And I had done a lot of. Oh, wow. I'd done a couple of albums for Doug, and so he was happy to have me there, to have somebody that was kind of more on his, level. Anyway, I'd never spoken on television before, and the way that Beauty and the Beast used to run was they would send you the questions, and there was a list of the 6 women who would be speaking in order. So you would know on the 3rd question they'd go to you first, or they'd go to you 3rd or 4th or whatever. So you had to think of as many responses as you possibly could. Mm-hmm. And I was a little bit in awe of those women for a start, because I felt that they were all university educated. Jeannie was a very smart woman, but I felt like I was, some inarticulate woman who really was what was my opinion worth? I didn't have very high kind of standards about myself. And I went on and I was quite good at it. And I had to learn not to say and like and like, don't say like. It's like.
Oh, so that was getting. I thought like was kind of in the last sort of 10 years the teenagers start, like
I'm saying like
yeah
like you know what I mean. You know what I'm saying?
Tell me about it.
It's those kinds. Yeah, it's those kinds of things that you have to become immediately conscious of not saying, and thinking before you speak, and articulating your opinion in a way that differs from somebody else that's just basically said the same thing. And I remember at one point it came to me and I was just like, oh, whatever. And Doug goes, what does that mean, whatever? And I said, it means whatever. I'm not interested. It's a stupid question. Move on. And they loved that. They loved that I could
that's awesome.
speak like that.
Yeah.
So once I did that for about a year, and I didn't know that. And we used to get, whenever I was on and whenever Gil Minervini was on, we would get a question about we'd get a gay question or a lesbian question. And I kind of felt like we were a bit tokenish, but I thought it's good that they're putting this in there, because it's important for people to hear that there's more than one opinion to hear opinions about gay life, lesbian life, trans life, whatever. And one day, Ita Buttrose said something to me about labelling. And she said, well, I don't say I'm Ita Buttrose and I'm not heterosexual. I don't feel it's important to label myself. And I said, yeah, because you don't have to. We have to, because it's important that people know that there's diversity in the world. Anyway, her people must have said something to her that, oh, you didn't come off so well there, Ita, because she was a spokesperson for, the AIDS Trust or the Bobby Goldsmith Foundation or one of those, big institutions. Yep. And the next time I went on, which was about 2 weeks later, I was on with Ita and there was another similar question. And Ita was first. And she referred to me. And I think it was you, Shauna, who said, blah, 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 blah. And I was like, right, she's redeeming herself. And I was like, right, yes, that's right. Anyway, so I didn't realise that it was on Foxtel 3 times a day. And I was out one night at a club having a dance, and this young, beautiful, young gay man came up to me. And he said to me, you don't understand how important it was for me to hear you and see you on television, because I grew up in the country in New South Wales and I felt so alone. And I used to watch you on Beauty and the Beast and I knew that I would be okay. And I was like, oh my God, it's so beautiful, to have, because you just don't think that you have an impact. It didn't even come into my consciousness that whatever I said was going to impact on somebody, because I just thought it was a bit of fluff TV, to be honest, excuse me. And then the next speaking gig I did on television was Pop Stars. And they asked me to be the vocal coach on Pop Stars live. Mm. So I was like, yeah, all right, I'll do that. And it sounds like a fun gig. I like working in television. So I would go over to this house, and what they had done with that Pop Stars show that year was, instead of auditioning the talent, they with just having a panel, they decided to get all these pop stars. Who it was? John Paul Young. What's her name from Bachelor Girl? What's her name? Tanya Docco. And was it Christine Anu? A couple of other people. And they picked the worst talent. Like, where they got these people, I have no idea. I don't know what they were thinking, but I was like, what? Anyway, so they wanted me to whip these people into shape. And at the time, I was probably didn't really have much patience at the time for stupidity. And, you know, when you put young kids on television.
I still don't. I
know I still don't either. But at the time, I was it was premenopausal. So okay. I probably used to, I definitely, there was a time in the month when you just wouldn't cross me. Just don't fucking cross me when I'm about to bleed. That's all I'm going to tell you. And I had a very low threshold for the talent. I was like, I couldn't believe it, the level of talent. Anyway, so they're trying to make this show into something that it was never going to be. And they ended up, the judges, firing all the judges. There's Molly Meldrum, a guy from the record company, and they asked me to be a judge. And I was like, sure, okay. They said, so have you got an evil nickname? I'm like, no, don't have an evil nickname. It's just, you know, I'll play that game, whatever it is that you want me to do. They were paying me a shitload of money.
Yep.
I went, okay, sure, no problem. I didn't want to, I said, I'm just going to be honest. I'm not going to be deliberately mean. I'm just going to be honest. And so, you know, a couple of times a week I'd go into Fox Studios and somebody would make me look glamorous, and I'd go on, and Molly Meldrum was obsessed with the ratings, obsessed. I'd go into the makeup trailer and he'd be, have you seen the paper today? And I'm like, no, I don't read the paper. I'm not interested in what other people have to say. I'm experiencing it. I know it's a shit show. I'm here. Don't worry about it. You know, it's just get on with it, get paid, get out. Because what else are you going to do, really?
Yeah, it's a day.
You know, it was crazy. And there was a guy on the show who was quite big in Hillsong or one of those big churches, and he would bus people into the audience, and they'd introduce me, and here's Shauna Jensen, like, boo, here's boo. They'd all boo me, right, because I'd been a bit mean to him. Honest with him.
Yeah.
Anyway, that was that. And that was interesting. What was the most interesting thing to come out of that was my observation of people outside of television and how they, when you're on a show like that, when you're on a television show, people are inviting you into their lounge room. So they feel like they know you from your persona that they see on television. They think that that's who you are. So they feel like they can talk to you in any circumstance, anywhere, that they own you. And people would come up to me in the supermarket and go, oh, hi, how you going? And I'd go, good, thanks. They go, oh, I know you. And I go, I don't think so. They go, oh, I know you from somewhere. I said, well, and I hated saying, maybe you've seen me on television.
Yeah.
You know, it's so cliche. Yeah, and I would go, well, I'm on television a bit. And I was on Pop Stars. Oh, no, I don't watch television. I'd go, oh, okay. Well, I must just have one of those faces or whatever. And when I would go out dancing on a Sunday night or something after the show, I had a good group of friends around me who would buffer me against the people that would want to come and talk to me. And I remember being at a club one night, and the first time I decided to go out, and I went to Arc nightclub in Sydney, and I ran into an old friend of mine. I hadn't seen her for ages. She was someone I was on Beauty and the Beast with. We were standing on the stairs trying to have a conversation, and people were just, excuse me, I don't mean to interrupt. Excuse me, I don't mean to interrupt, but blah, 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 blah. And I'd go, oh, okay, I'm just trying to have a conversation with my friend here. Okay, just wait a minute. And because they'd be out of it, you know, they'd be pissed or on something. And I remember ending up that night just dancing in the DJ booth because was the only place I could get away from people because people just wanted to just talk to you. And I thought, what must it be like for somebody like Madonna?
Right.
It must just be for somebody like me who was like an E-lister for somebody like, it must just be awful, the living with that and not having any privacy or any, I mean, I'm happy to talk to anybody really, but people coming up and saying, I don't mean to interrupt, but, and then interrupting you, that really gave me the shits. And one night I was out and I was sitting on the speakers at home nightclub, having a great time. My friends were dancing. It was really good. I was just enjoying my drink. And this guy, and this was at a time when people were all taking ecstasy and anybody would talk to anybody and everyone put their arms around you. And this guy started talking to me, oh, you're on Pop Stars. I was like, yep. And he started to talk to me about it. And I said, well, I'm actually not at work now, so I don't really want to talk about it. Oh, he goes, oh, yeah, fair enough. So we started talking about something else. And he brought the conversation around to a point where I had to give him an opinion. And I gave him the opinion. He goes, and that's what you should have said to that girl on Pop Stars the other night. And I was like, oh, right. For God's sake, man. Oh, really and truly. It's, people are weird. When people know that you're a singer, they'll say, oh, could you sing something for me?
Yeah, right.
Can you sing me something? I'm like, well, are you an accountant? Can you do my taxes for me? What do you do? And I actually said to somebody at a party once, he was this English guy and he was munted on something. And he goes, oh, yeah, I hear you're a bit of a singer. And I went, yes, I am. And he goes, well, give us a song. And I was like, no. What do I look like, a performing seal or something?
Yeah, you first. Yeah. After you.
And I said to him, what do you do?
Yeah.
And he goes, well, I'm in fashion. And I said, well, why don't you give me a demonstration of what you do? And then if I think that it's worthy enough, then I'll give you a demonstration of what I do. Yeah. And he started, like showing me his jeans or something. And I went, yeah, no, boring. And he goes, why aren't you going to sing anything? And I said, no, I'm not, because that's my prerogative. He said, well, you're a fucking bitch. And I was like, yeah, thank you. Thank you so much. You're right, I am. Now fuck off. It was like, I'm not really a bitch, but I can be. So, in fact, he didn't call me a bitch. He called me the C word. And that was when I just went, you know what? I'm not, but I can be. And that's when I told him to fuck off. So, people are just, it's an interesting phenomena when you're on television and, you have that level of recognition. And I've done it myself. I went up to Sasha Haller one day, the actor, at Bondi, and I was like, hi, how are you? And she went, I'm great. And I said, I just realised you're Sasha Haller and I don't know you. And I feel like I know you, so I'm so embarrassed.
Yeah.
And I love you, Oh, my God, fangirling. Yeah. It's crazy. So
my only experience is something really small like that, and it kind of freaked me out a little bit. I was up at our local shops with my two daughters, and this would have been 18 months ago, I reckon. Anyway, I'm just walking through the shops, and this guy just came up to me and goes, "You're Stevie Taylor from the Gig Life podcast." And I went, "How the fuck did you know that? I'm an audio podcast. Like, nobody knows my face. Like, so possibly seen my face on Facebook or something like that." And he was like, "Yeah, I love your show, man. It's so great. I'm a bass player and I know this guy and this guy." And, and I'm like, "Oh, that's really cool, man." Like, and then he goes, "Oh, have a nice day." And it was really nice. And, but I was walking back, sort of through the shops, and my daughter said, "Who was that?" And I said, I don't know. Why did he say hello to you? Like, this, like, are you, and first time I'd ever had any experience like that in my life.
Yeah.
And it was strange. It was strange.
It is strange, but it's also wonderful. It's strange but wonderful because it's beautiful when people come up to you and want to tell you how much they enjoy your work.
Yeah, that was cool. Yeah, I'm not taking away from that.
If he'd come up to you and said, "This is what you should be doing in your podcast,"
yeah,
that's a different story. You know, when people do that, it's like, no,
yeah,
no,
yeah.
no. You go and do your own podcast, darling.
Yeah, it was just
Put
put
it on your own album.
That's it.
Yeah. So so my television, experience, all my television experience and being able to speak on television really helped me to become, to move into my cabaret career, which is I'm able to speak and tell good stories, and I'm quite funny, and I think I do put it down. I know that it comes from the experiences of being on television and being in those situations where you have to be articulate and you have to tell a story and you have to be entertaining at the same time. And so, I really enjoy doing that, and that's mostly what I do these days. Is little cabaret shows.
We'll get a little bit deeper into that. It just made me think about, you said when you're on TV and you really had to start thinking about your ums and your ahs and your knows, and is that something they came to you and said, well, you're saying and ah too much?
No.
You need to go away and work it out, or did they have people, or did you just think it yourself and you worked it out?
I realised it myself.
Okay.
And I think my partner at the time might have said to me, you say a lot.
Okay.
And I became aware. I was just, maybe it was the first time I looked at myself and I thought, oh, I said too many times. And I'm acutely aware of it when I see people speaking on television.
Okay.
I'm aware of the amount of times that people say and I think, I hope you go home and look at that and you realise that you say every second word, because it's really annoying. Yeah. It's annoying to hear somebody say, well, it's and then it's like, no, stop and think and speak.
I'm laughing because when you go back and listen to this, you'll be hearing me like now. I'm trying to correct myself. Now I'm trying to stop myself saying But yeah, I say a lot, and see, I just did it then. But
it's a habit. It is a habit, and it's not the best habit to have when you have a podcast. And I was watching, who was it? It was a female police commissioner of something on television the other night talking about, it could have been in Victoria, talking about something that had happened in Victoria. And I swear every third word out of her mouth was
Right.
And we will be moving to a better situation and I was like, oh my God, you just stop it. Listen to yourself. And I know that I still say and ah. It's not like I don't say it, but it's a matter of slowing down and just being aware of it, because no one wants to hear that. I've always taken great pride in having, correct grammar and speaking well and being articulate. And when I heard myself saying and like, I was like, well, no, that's got to stop. That's got to stop right now.
So you make me want to go away and work on myself.
Good.
I'm gonna.
Excellent.
Go. Yeah.
And that's all for today. Thank you, Stevie. Your session's up now. It is interesting, and I hope that you do go away and think about that, because as a podcaster, it's important that you are articulate. And I'm not saying that you're not. I've listened to your podcast, and I wouldn't say that you say but when you do say it now, you're going to. It's a matter of saying to yourself, I don't do that anymore.
Yeah.
I don't say that anymore. I don't say that anymore. And when I listen to Jimmy Barnes talking, He says, every second word, and then I'm going to do this, and then, you do this, and it's like, oh my God, I know. I know. I know.
I'm going to have like Auntie Shauna sitting on my shoulder every time I talk on a podcast now.
Yes, you will. I'll be sending you a text saying you've said 50 times in this podcast.
Oh, that's brilliant. Oh, very good. Okay, so let's talk about your cabaret career now. So,
right.
Like you said, the TV kind of.
Well, yeah. I would love another. I did another job in television. I recently did Channel 7 did a show called All Together Now with 100 judges.
Yep.
And a lot of musicians, a lot of singers that they asked to do it in Sydney wouldn't do it because it was shit money. It was literally a per diem per day. And I was like, okay, I haven't got anything else to do for 10 days. I'll go and do that. And it was fun. And I enjoyed it. And I didn't have to speak that much, but when I did speak, it was fun. And somebody won $100,000 at the end of it, so that was great. See, I just said it then.
I didn't say anything.
When I started doing cabaret, I remember getting a cover of a gay paper called SX, and they had a photo of me with a microphone in my hand. It was the cheesiest photo. I looked good, but it was a cheesy photo. And I remember in that article saying, I'm not a cabaret performer, because to me, cabaret reminded me of when I first did, one of the first gigs that I did was at a place called what was it called? I can't remember. It was in Cleveland Street, and it was a club. And they used to do floor shows. And that to me was cabaret. And it was cheesy. It just wasn't something that really, it never seemed to me to be very cool. It was always, yeah, baby, let's go and do cabaret. And I always thought it was a bit cheesy. I was singing in the back bar of the Albury Hotel, and a guy now who's one of my very best friends named Mark Kuzma, who runs this place called Claire's Kitchen now, and he had a drag career as Claire de Lune. He's French. And he was doing some night at one of the bars in Oxford Street, and he said, you should come and sing, do a couple. I can only pay you $50 or something like that. And I was like, okay, I'm in it. This is what I've done my whole career, Stevie. I've gone yes, no. Now I'm in the no. I'm in the no phase. But I struck up a friendship with Mark, and then he took over a business in Oxford Street called Slide, a club, and they wanted to have cabaret acts. And so he said to me, "Would you put a cabaret show together?" And I was like, "Okay." So I put a show together, and a guy called Trevor Ashley, who's an amazing impersonator, singer, cabaret star, well-known all around the world. He helped me put this show together, and I basically wrote a show that was about my career from the beginning of walking through that door up until the present moment. And it was mainly aimed at the gay community, because by that stage I'd already kind of glossed over the fact that I started doing dance music in 2000. So I started doing house music with a DJ in Sydney called Paul Goodyear, and we did a song called Take Me to Heaven, and he had that remixed by a DJ from London called Wayne G, who I still work with, and we still make records together. We don't make records, we do songs together. Mm-hmm. And I had done a few Mardi Gras shows, which is a really big thing in the gay community. Mardi Gras shows are in the midst of a room full of 10,000 people at 1 o'clock or 2 o'clock or 4 o'clock or 8 o'clock in the morning, there's a big production show with a singer, and that singer could be Kylie, Danny, Shaka Khan, and, Christine Anu, Tina Arena, me. I have done probably 4 now. So I realised that the majority of the gay community had only ever seen me when they were completely off their heads on drugs at some time at the night, going, oh, she's pretty, I wonder who that is. So I did this show to kind of introduce myself to the gay community, and it was very successful, and I liked it, and I liked doing that. And then Mark Clare moved next door, opened a restaurant, and there was a great space upstairs for a cabaret space. There's about 50, 60 people. So I started doing cabaret shows there once a month, and I've done quite a few now. And next year I hope to be doing those cabaret shows at the festivals. Pardon me. I really want to take it out of that like small realm and move into a larger realm of cabaret. And I really enjoy it. I love telling the stories. I love being funny. I love the intimacy of the cabaret. I love it. And I've worked a lot with Bob Down, and he has been a huge influence on me, because not just for his incredible musical knowledge, but he's also very funny. His comedic timing is amazing, as Bob Down, Mark Trevorrow I'm talking about. And I also got to work with Gary McDonald when he was Norman Gunston. I did a tour with him when I was a lot younger. And who else have I worked with that was really funny? Mark. Who else? Can't remember. So the cabaret thing is just one thing I do. Oh, I know another story. Just going back to the sessions, I got to work with Hugh Jackman, and
I've got a question. Yeah, I've got a question here about this, about your unreleased duets album with Hugh Jackman.
Yes,
and Phil Ramone. Yeah, let's talk about that.
That was produced by Phil Ramone. Oh, my God. I couldn't believe it when I got that gig.
Wow.
It was like they had tried. So it wasn't – I was never going to be doing duets with Hugh Jackman. They were going to be duets that Hugh Jackman was going to do with stars from the realm of musical theatre or whatever. So I was just the demo singer.
Okay.
And they'd obviously tried a couple of people and didn't quite work. And I got a call and they said, could you go down to 301 and do this gig? And they'd like to hear you sing. I was like, oh, all right. So I was living in Alexandria at the time. So I just, went down there, and Phil Ramone was there. And I was like, oh, my God, this Phil Ramone, oh my God, So they had me sing something, and he goes, "You got the gig." I was like, right. And so I did all these duets with Hugh, who wasn't a very good singer at that point.
Okay.
He wasn't very good. And he'll be the first person to tell you he wasn't very good. But what a lovely guy. If he was sitting right here, right now, there's just no pretentiousness. He's just a genuine, regular guy. Lovely man. I had a great time doing that. And, another tick. Worked with him. That was good. And the guy who was producing that album had been the stage manager for Jesus Christ Superstar. And he had gone on to become this big New York producer. He's unfortunately passed away, but he had gone on to be a big New York producer. And so it was fabulous to have that connection there as well. Really good. Really good. Cool. Yes, really very cool. I've had a very cool career.
Yes. And so much more to come.
I hope so.
Yeah.
I ain't finished yet.
No, that's it. Now, last night, I sent you a message and I asked you to choose one song that's had the biggest impact on you. Now we'll play that song. And I want you to introduce the song and just before I hit play, and then tell us why that song and why the impact it's had. And we'll have a bit of a listen, and then we're gonna have a chat about it afterwards.
Okay. The song is Dr. Feelgood, Love is a Serious Business, from Aretha Franklin live at the Fillmore.
So why this song?
Well, this song is it's a great anthem for women. It's all about being empowered, saying, this is what I want, this is my man. I don't want to talk to you girls. I don't want to do anything. I just want to be loving with my man. And it's just one of the best tracks she's ever done. And I can't honestly say, Stevie, that there's one song ever.
You had to, and this is it.
I know,
you had to say
made me. You made me.
That's the idea. Let's have a listen for a bit.
Because company's all right with me every once in a while. Don't get me wrong, people. I really love company. Because company is all right with me every once in a great while.
So that is Aretha Franklin live at the Fillmore, and the song is Dr. Feelgood. Now,
can I just say something about that track?
Yeah.
That track embodies Aretha's gospel roots, bringing it into a contemporary setting. And her phrasing and it gives me goosebumps. Like, just no other singer can do. And the only other person who's ever come close enough to do that other female singer is probably Whitney Houston.
Wow.
Aretha is the queen, always will be. And when people say, Madonna's my queen, I'm like, bitch, please. Bitch, please.
Have you heard the story about the Grammy Awards where Pavarotti was supposed to sing.
Oh, yes.
He was supposed to sing Nessun Dorma.
Oh.
Yeah, and then well, for the people that don't know, it was 1998 or something, the Grammys. Excuse me. And Pavarotti was supposed to, he was getting a Lifetime Achievement Award or something like that at the Grammys, and he was supposed to perform. He turned up at rehearsal the day before, but he didn't sing. And then the show had actually started the next day, and he hadn't turned up. So the producer rang him, and he said, "Look, my voice is shot. I won't be performing. I'll sing next year." So the producer's like, "Well, we've started the show. We've got this 5-minute time slot. We've got this orchestra booked and paid for and such. What are we going to do? So who are we going to get?" So he got out of his band booth or whatever he was and went into the dressing room, and Aretha Franklin was sitting in there. And she was eating chicken. She was having a feed. And he just said to her, "Look, I know you're performing later, but do you want to perform again? Do you want to do another song?" And she said, "Yeah, whatever you want." So, yeah, I think they called the MD in there, and they had, because apparently she'd I think she'd performed it a few days earlier somewhere else or whatever.
I heard that she had been learning it.
Learning it, right? Okay.
She had been learning it, and
yeah.
I'm not sure whether she had performed it anywhere. But that was definitely the first time. And I remember watching that Grammy Awards and standing, I can remember where I was, standing with my mouth open and my hand on my heart, not breathing, watching her doing that. And I implore all the listeners of this podcast to go and listen to Aretha's version of Nessun Dorma.
Oh, man.
Because when she brings her essence into it, and she brings that gospel flavor into it towards the end there.
And then she starts doing her riffs.
Oh,
when it's not supposed to riff, is it? It's supposed to just hit those notes, but then she does her Aretha riffs and far out.
Goosebumps just thinking.
Yeah, me too.
It.
Look.
I did I just did the Aretha Franklin songbook at the Sydney Opera House 2018, I think it was, 2019. And we've been touring. We've been doing that show quite a bit, the Aretha Franklin songbook, with a 10-piece band. And I say to the audience, I'm not trying to be Aretha Franklin. I'm just singing the songs. But, boy, it's a hard sing. Oh, my God. Right. It's a really hard sing. And, it's so powerful. And if I had more control over that show, I would probably have not chosen all the hits. But people love hearing all those hits.
Sure.
Which mostly came from one year. Think, Respect, all those songs, those big songs. They came from like 68, which is bizarre. And she's done some greats, and her jazz albums, and she is the singer that's had the greatest influence on me of any other singer. I love them all. Love Shaka, love Gladys, love Whitney. She was a great singer. Bloody hell, she was a good singer, that girl.
Yeah.
But Aretha,
I remember talking to
Queen.
When I interviewed Beck, I believe that was her big singer too, is Aretha.
Yeah. Well, Becky used to sit. Beck used to sit in the back of the car, in her car seat, doing harmonies, and and when the Blues Brothers album came out, the Blues Brothers movie, she used to play it all the time, and she would dance on the back of the couch, being Aretha Franklin. So when we did the Aretha Franklin songbook, I made her sing "Think." And she told that story to the audience, and everybody loved it.
Fantastic.
That. Yeah. Great.
That's cool.
Yeah, I wanted her to sing it because it was a really hard song to sing.
Palm it off.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's awesome. Well, Shauna Jensen, this has been awesome. You're a gem. I've had a blast hanging out with you tonight. You made me laugh, and
Yay.
Your stories are great, and I love you. I think you're awesome.
Thank you
And,
so much.
Yeah, sweet as. This has been good.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Wish you all the best for the rest of the year, and if you got some gigs in Sydney, and I'll try and get out and we can catch up and have a beer.
Absolutely,
cool.
going to be awesome, Stevie.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. And you know what? I must say congratulations for creating something like the Gig Life podcast and supporting Australian music. It's a really treasured thing that you're doing, and I think you should be very proud of it.
Thank you very much.
Very proud of it. Oh, that's all right.
That's really cool.
Just remember.
That's it. I got to get to work.
Okay, babe. Thanks so much.
All right, Shauna.
Talk
Take it
to you
easy.
later. Bye.
Catch you, mate. See ya.
Bye.